right. All right, so we will be starting with chapter 8 now, and the Bible verse that we'll be looking at the beginning is in Ruth. It's a book we don't get into too often. Ruth chapter 1. Now we've got to go searching for Ruth. I used to be at a church where we had 3 very active people named Ruth, and I thought that was unusual. And I used to joke about how at least this church isn't ruthless.
My mother-in-law was a tall and thin lady, and her good friend was short and stout, and they were both Ruth.
Oh, okay.
So, yes.
They were like Abbott and Costello Ruth.
Yeah, but it was Grammy Ruth. I always called her Grammy Ruth. There's a difference.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to read Ruth chapter 1, verses 6 through 14. Everybody got it?
I'm going to start.
Yeah, I'll start, and then you can be next. Okay. Then she started to return with her daughters-in-law from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab that the Lord had considered his people and given them food.
I didn't have the right.
I don't have that.
Ruth chapter 1, starting at verse 6.
Oh, it's third in Moab.
I know when Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had come.
With her 2 daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take them back to the land of Judah.
Am I next?
Mm-hmm.
Just one line or what?
One verse.
8. But Naomi said to her 2 daughter-in-laws, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me.
The Lord grant that you may find security, each of you, in the house of your husband." Then she kissed them, and they wept aloud.
They said to her, "No, we will return with you to your people."
But Naomi said, "Return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons who could become your husbands?"
Turn back, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. If I should say I have hope, even if I should have a husband this night and should bear sons.
Would you then wait until they were grown? Would you then refrain from marrying? No, my daughters, it has been far more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of the Lord has turned against me.
At this they wept again. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law and said goodbye, but Ruth clung to her.
Okay. So the book of Ruth begins with grief, suffering, and desperation. Naomi and her daughters-in-law had fled a famine. They'd all lost their husbands and came to a crossroads where a decision needed to be made. Naomi urges her daughters-in-law, Ruth and Orpah, to go back to their families of origin, where they might remarry and be taken care of. Orpah refuses at first, but then complies and returns home. Ruth, on the other hand, is undeterred. She will return to Bethlehem with Naomi. So Ruth and Naomi provide a picture of friendship, loyalty, and sacrifice. They were not obligated to each other, but they chose each other. They helped each other, and they took risks for each other. Their friendship transcended geography, family ties, and social expectations. In our fast-paced and individualistic society, it can be difficult to find and maintain friendships. We may experience seasons or years of loneliness, and our loneliness may be exacerbated by geography or life circumstances. In the book of Ruth, and in this chapter of the Sacred Pulse, we're invited to consider again the importance of friendship in an otherwise lonely world. Let us pray. Compassionate God, in friendship you show us the beauty of relationship and companionship. Sometimes we are lonely, or we feel as though we aren't seen or known by anyone but you. Encourage us, O God, and help us to befriend ourselves as we seek to befriend others. Amen. Okay. So let's start by thinking about a friendship in your life that was or is a blessing to you. Imagine the kind of things that you did or do with that particular friend.
I miss my friends who died, and I remember doing different things with those people. Bless you.
Thank you.
And one was, with one person, was mainly going to lunch or going to dinner. She loved to go out to eat. And she was single and, just wanted to go out. And the other one was, we'd probably meet for a meal, but not that often. And we would mainly talk about our spiritual lives. We would always we'd talk a little bit when we first, got together about how are you and all that. But then we get into more of a spiritual discussion about our lives. So those two were different that way.
Thank you.
I've
What
been
other kind of
blessed
things?
with really good friends, and especially Gail. She'll just, when my mother had to have surgery, like 11 o'clock at night, she just showed up and waited with me.
Mm-hmm.
When I went with the CAT scan, she was at the hospital waiting for me. When Fred had to have the colon cancer surgery, Phyllis and Wayne came and sat with me. So, I have so many good friends in my life.
Yes.
So far we've heard about people coming and spending time. We've heard about sharing a meal. We've heard about talking. What other kind of things, do you do with these friends that you're thinking of?
Oh, I shop with Gail.
Yeah. Because I was thinking your friendship probably did start with her coming over when you were having a bad time. There was something that started that friendship, and then she would do that. So
It started, ironically, at one of our rummage sales.
there you go. Shopping.
She would shop here with her adopted daughter Morgan. And she remembers it more than I do, how I would tell her, hey, we have kids' clothes, go pick them out for Morgan. And then ironically, I moved to Evergreen where her parents lived. And I met her at the pool.
Small world.
Yep.
And it just started from there. That was 2015. But it really started at Prince of Peace.
Okay. What other kinds of things do you enjoy doing with your friends, or did you enjoy doing with the friends you're thinking of?
Well, sorry.
I was going to say, I think I had lots of friends, but I think my mom was my closest friend. I had a picture back when I was like 2 or 3 years old, and you could see the bond there.
Even then? Wow.
We did everything together
Yeah.
through our lives.
We're so blessed. Yes, I was never really near my mother when I grew up. We were far away, all the way until she died. I mean, I'd see her once or twice a year, but it's just such a blessing for you to have a mother near you.
My mother and I were never that close, but this morning, for some reason, I felt the need to wear her wedding band. I don't know why. Wow. I just want her close to me right now. Because when we're not feeling good, we usually want our moms.
With us.
Anybody else?
I was going to say that my groups of friends kind of go along with activities or things. So I have church friends, or I have dulcimer friends, I have like college friends or high school friends,
Work friends.
And they don't always mix together, not because they don't get along, it's just that there's not that commonality, so sometimes things overlap, but book club friends, so you have these different groups of friends that you do different things with, and I think that's kind of interesting. But my best friend is my husband. We've been together forever, so yeah.
And you do a lot together, which is important.
Yes, yeah. I mean, and I do stuff with my mom, but I can't say I always get along with my mom as well as you do with your mom. I love my mom, but we have a little friction sometimes.
You play the dulcimer well together.
Sorry.
I think throughout your life you have different friends at different times.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
You have
Absolutely.
early work
Yes.
friends,
Absolutely.
later work friends,
Yep.
retired friends, friends you have things in common with, and things that you like to do together. So
Yeah.
What's cool is when you get back together with some of those friends, it's almost like no time has passed.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
Yes.
we
yes.
just went to Aruba, and I have a friend, Franklin, that he's from Aruba, but he went to college at Kutztown where I went. And I have not seen him in person in more than 20 years. Like, I've emailed him or maybe once in a while talked to him on the phone, but we got together and it was like no time has passed, you know?
Yeah.
And that's cool.
Same as on the phone. I have friends I've met all over the country because I moved a lot, and I'll every now and then talk to them, and it's like we're on the same page right away.
So how do you feel after spending time with these people?
Good. Well, I was going to say, I have been corresponding with someone since I'm 11 years old. And I met her 3 times when we were camping. We went near her place. We still correspond. And it's snail mail. And I love it when I see a snail mail in the box.
Yep.
And then there's another camping friend, we correspond by phone. And then one over in Jersey, we correspond. And then I guess my best friend would be, she's Stacy's godmother. She lives in Easton. We don't see each other that often, but when we do, there's no time pass. Or a text, a long text. Yeah, we should really get together and not do this texting. Yeah.
Yeah, I got together yesterday with some girls that I worked with. Like, I haven't seen them for like 6 or 7 years, and I mean, we had a great time. And right away, it's like when you leave, it's okay. We gotta get together again.
And you never do.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
we'll
you have
see.
to wait until you get older. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And my friend Donna, her husband passed away first, and then Roy, and then she still lived here, and she included me in what they call the friends and family lunches. And now that's even grown because some of that family has now retired, but I'm always, and her sister, they include me. Well, they know that that's just the kids, and me. I don't have parents around, so. Yeah,
How is Donna?
She's good. She's isolated, like she lives in in her son's basement. She doesn't get out as much, but I see her about once a month with these lunches, and
Yeah.
we talk almost every night.
Oh, good.
Been that way since I moved, really.
She had serious health problems.
Oh my gosh, yes. And still some memory loss.
Oh, really?
Yeah, different things. Yeah, now I can't remember. But do you think I can get her to write it down? I said, I've had a tablet by my phone since I worked second shift with the girls. It's my lifeline. I said, write it down. No, I ain't going to do that. I'm afraid she's not.
I think sometimes too you have to watch what kind of friends. Because sometimes you have friends that you might get in trouble with.
Get in trouble with?
They may lead you into things you're
We've
not.
all done that. Yeah.
Like, remember with your kids?
Oh,
I
my
remember
son.
when my son was going out for Halloween, I said, who are you going with? Because I know there's some kids that really, in the neighborhood, have been really trashing people's houses. And you will be blamed if you go with them. Because even though you don't want to do it, or you might not do it. So,
As for people being opposites, my one good friend has passed away many years ago, but she was the youngest of the Thomas family that had Thomas's greenhouse, 12 kids. And I'm an only child, but we became friends because we worked together at Blue Ridge. And Friday nights we'd go out after work. And that wasn't always good, but yeah. So yeah.
and did you talk about friends? And actually, I guess it's hard to define friends, because friends can be a real close friend or different friends for different reasons, as we were saying. But I remember my mother said to me once when she met a woman that came to our house, and she said, watch out for her, she's a people eater. Like, remember the Purple People Eater song? And I said, what do you mean that? Well, she says, well, she just wants so much from you. She seems to be so needy, and she seems to like. And then later, as I've gotten older, I realized that some people sort of like suck the air or the energy out of me, even though they're with me a very short amount of time. And I can feel it. So I realized I like the person, but it's going to be small doses because it's not good.
And that's that rhythm. That's the rhythm of
Not good
friendships.
for me.
Friendships are not constant. Friendships are at least not constantly intense. You're not with them 24/7. So.
Right. And it's the awareness that you have when you get older, I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a
Takes a while.
little wisdom.
Mhm.
So in our opening, as well as in the beginning of the chapter, April refers to the friendship between Ruth and Naomi. Can you think of any other biblical examples of friendship?
Jesus and that one disciple that he said he always loved.
In the Gospel of John, there's this one disciple who just gets referred to as the disciple whom Jesus loved, and there's been loads of curiosities of who that was and what that means. But yeah, absolutely, there was some kind of friendship there. Yeah.
I'm like trying to think whether it was Daniel or
already named?
David.
Who was already named?
Daniel.
Just one. Just
Wait.
Just those two.
David and Jonathan, is that
No,
there's one.
Gosh, you would think I'd know this being a Sunday school teacher.
Uh-huh.
Which one was friends with Shadrach,
Oh,
Meshach,
yeah.
and
Oh, yeah,
Abednego?
that was Daniel,
Daniel.
Yeah, those guys were friends, sure.
And so they were friends, yeah.
Were Elizabeth and Mary friends? Or
Well, they were
They were
kin.
cousins.
cousins? They were
And sometimes your relatives can be your close friend.
Yeah.
Was Martha and Mary, were they friends?
They were sisters.
Yeah. Sometimes sisters are friends, sometimes they're not.
It was, well, Moses and Aaron, but Aaron was Moses' brother,
Mhm.
but they were still, I guess, friends.
We're thinking of a lot of relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was Moses friends with Joshua?
Joshua was Moses' successor. I don't know that there's much talk of them being friends. Maybe. I'm not an expert in the book of Numbers and Deuteronomy. There might be stuff in there about it. I'm not sure.
Well, let's just Google.
Yeah.
Well, and Jesus was friends with Lazarus. It doesn't
Yes.
say what they ever
Yes.
did together, but
Yeah.
it said that Lazarus was his friend and
Yep.
wept for him.
Yep,
So.
that is true. When you think of these kind of friendships in the Bible, what would you say are some of the characteristics of these friendships? If you can even tell.
Loyalty.
Okay?
Some was the family connection.
Mm-hmm.
Kept them together.
Sacrifice, I
Trust.
think.
Maybe
Yeah.
trust.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Respect. But that's with any friendship. I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Mm-hmm.
Love.
Believing in the same things.
What did you say?
Believing in the same things.
Common interest.
Common.
Right.
Probably the same values.
Yeah, I
Same.
think that's an
Same.
important thing too, values.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the other thing this chapter talks about is about the importance of befriending yourself. That's part of what friendship is. So we'll talk about that for a little bit. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not at all comfortable and 10 being very comfortable, how comfortable are you at spending time alone?
10.
10.
I would say a 9.
I'd say 9.
10.
I'm the odd one out.
I said 10.
Well, I
10.
think I was before let's see, how old was I? Anyway, when I was divorced and I was alone, totally, my kids had gone and I had nobody at home. I had to go through a period until you are alone. You don't really know what it's like to be alone.
That's true.
You really
That
don't.
is
I mean,
true.
you may think,
Mhm.
but to be totally alone without family around you. And that I was for about 7 years, maybe 5. Laura was still home for a year. Then she went to college and went away. And Andrew had already left. So I felt it was hard for me. I went through counseling for the divorce, and I had some homework. The homework was go to a museum by yourself, go to a restaurant by yourself, do these different things by yourself. And it was hard, but I learned that it was okay. I was so used to going with somebody.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up because, I've gone into a diner, sit there and eat by yourself or McDonald's, and it's like no big deal. And I a lot of times take a book and read it while I'm like eating or something. But I think it's different when you feel like that's your only choice. Like that it's a completely different feeling. And so after you said that, I was thinking, I don't know if I've ever really, like, you can be alone at home, but sometimes somebody else is gonna like be there, but that's different if you
Go home to an empty house.
right, if you're alone because of circumstances and somebody else isn't gonna be there later on. That's a different feeling, I think.
Or if everyone's busy because their families are busy with them for holidays,
Right.
and you don't have your family for a holiday. Those kinds of things. But you have to really learn to do that. I mean, you're so used to it, and then you don't have it. So you learn. It was a chance also for me to become more into my spiritual life, because I would, I met with groups, and then I was reading more of the Bible, and it was an opportunity for me to become more into my spiritual life than I was.
Or you're home alone on Christmas Eve and it snows and nobody's coming. That was my first Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
After Roy passed away. The kids were going to come down and it snowed, so you learn. Well, when we had that group for the phone calls, alone without being lonely. So you learn that. You pick up the phone. You know who you can count on.
You can always call me, Carolyn. I'll talk to you.
Well, now it would be a text, but yeah. Okay. Or an email, but yeah. No.
If you ever want
you're
somebody to talk to, call me.
I'll call you too.
I've talked to you.
I talk to
people calling
anybody.
Yeah. Call me too. I'm a good listener.
Someone once told me that there's a difference between spending time by yourself and spending time with yourself. Would you say that's true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you describe the difference there?
Okay, now to describe it.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you're spending time by yourself, you just happen to be not with someone else, but you might be engaged in other things. Like I spend time by myself crocheting or painting or reading or something, but I don't necessarily feel like I'm spending time with myself. Like I feel like when you're spending time with yourself, it's more like a self-examination. I'm not really self-examining myself when I'm crocheting.
Meditation, maybe.
Yeah, so I
Being
feel like
still
there's a
and-
difference that when you're spending time with yourself, it's more, like retrospective or self-examining, and not just
Makes sense.
the fact that nobody else is around. Yeah.
But, I think when you were saying painting or whatever, depends on what you're doing. Sometimes I've been picking up the dulcimer again. And also playing a plaintive song, a very quiet one. And then I feel like I'm sort of at one with the music, and I also feel that way sometimes when I'm painting. Depends on what I'm doing. If I'm painting something that I really am into and I really am in a meditative way, I feel like I'm doing it with myself. I'm not just doing a project or doing that. I'm really into connecting with it. So I'm connecting spiritually with it. Besides reading, the Bible and journaling, and praying. I'm praying all the time. It's a form of prayer sometimes when I do some of the arts, and I should think you do too. We don't realize it, but we're just sort of connecting with our spirits, and sometimes we'll say thank you, or sometimes, it's hard to explain. It's the thankfulness that you have that you're doing this, the wonder of it, just feeling like you're being there, and you're not just dusting around. Right? Janet and I were talking about dusting. We always think we have to dust, but you don't always have to dust.
My house hasn't fallen down yet. And it hasn't been dusted in 12 years. So.
This is going to happen. It's just going to keep dusting. I mean, the dust keeps coming.
Yeah,
That's why dust? Why dust comes back?
It's gonna come back.
That's honestly, that's how it's mine. I don't even notice the dust. When dusting happens is when one of the kids comes up and says, like, I really want to earn some money. What can I do around here? Dust. And do the windows. Yeah.
Send them to me.
Yeah, right.
I think corresponding with people, whether it's a phone or a letter, you feel different about that than when you're doing things around the house.
Yes.
Whatever it may be,
Yeah.
whether you're well, even if you're doing a puzzle, you're into that with yourself. You're not, cleaning or even watching TV or so. It's different.
When you're writing a letter to someone or an email, it's there's something interesting about that, because you're not really with that person, and yet
Right.
you kind of are. In a way. It's kind of this. You're not completely alone when you're doing that.
Right.
Even though you kind of are.
Well,
Sorry,
no, the girl I still correspond with, well, it used to be, a letter every couple of weeks. Now it's like birthdays and holidays, and she actually married her first husband's. She married a Thompson, which was my maiden name.
Oh.
So I was writing to Evelyn Thompson.
Wow.
Oh.
That's neat.
We thought maybe our daughters would continue, but they didn't.
That's neat. So when you started, she was writing to a Thompson, and then eventually you were writing to a Thompson instead. That's neat. Yeah. Was it spelled the same way too?
Yeah. THOMPS something. Yeah.
Well, I found when we were writing cards to the soldiers, a lot of times, I gotta sit here and write some cards tonight. Oh man, I could do this. I gotta write the cards. Now it's like, oh man, I wish I could sit down and write some cards.
yeah.
Now,
It's like,
now what do I have to do?
no, it's like
And
they
she got
miss
some
it.
more yesterday. She got a pile from Jackie last night. Well, Jackie put it on the Facebook, for both the boutique. Always collecting Christmas cards. But she'll definitely need them.
Well, Pastor, earlier you said that relationships kind of change, or friendships change, or ebb and flow. And I feel like when you're spending time alone or with yourself, I feel even that time can kind of ebb and flow or go up and down. Like, especially if you're doing something like writing cards or painting or even if you're taking a walk, like, your mind just starts thinking of things, and you find that as the things that you're thinking about while you're doing something else change, it's almost like your mood changes, or and sometimes I guess it depends what else is happening, whether you feel alone or whether you're just fine being alone. And sometimes you can start out feeling alone, but based on where your thoughts go or what you're doing, then that can change, and then you don't feel alone. Like even in the same span of time.
There's a difference between alone and lonely, isn't there?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you ever, sometimes when I go for a walk, I want someone to be with me, so the time will go fast. So I won't, I'll walk like Lake Minzy, and I'll hope somebody can come with me, and Linda can't always come, or whatever. And Dave can't always come. So if I do start out, and I do, and no one else is around to talk to, I start walking, and I remember learning the mindful walk, which is breathing the same pace as your walk, as your pace. And you get into that rhythm, and then pretty soon you're mindfully walking, and you'll notice the lake, you'll notice the sound, you'll notice all those different senses come to you, and so you're really mindfully. To me, it's like being with myself, and that's okay, and I like that. But I have to get there before I say, I want to have somebody to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I walk around Evergreen, I usually see people, but most days when I walk past where that one little tomato plant grew out of the gutter, it just that survived.
It's
and
the birds.
I only saw it the 1 year, but where did it came from? Nowhere.
Don't you find when you walk alone, though, you talk to God a lot?
Yes.
Yeah, it's peaceful.
I'll say,
to do that. Yes.
I'll see this cloud, and I'll see the sun shining through, and I'll say, are you going to stay there for a while, or are you going to? Is that cloud going to cover you up? And I'll talk to that way. Yeah.
So part of being alone is kind of befriending ourselves, is making friends with ourselves, and that's not always easy. What's an area of your life where you struggle to show compassion to yourself?
When you're a perfectionist, you get mad at yourself for not having done something right.
Mm-hmm.
Very true.
Making mistakes. I can't forgive myself or forget.
If you what?
When you make a mistake, it's hard for me to forget.
I remember the one thing that said, load brain before shooting off mouth. So get your thoughts together, don't burst.
That's a long time since I've heard that
Once
one.
those words are said, you can't take them back.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You ever see that example with a tube of toothpaste?
Yeah.
It's something I've done with youth
yeah.
groups in the past. That you take a tube of toothpaste and a plate, like a paper plate. Usually, I get like 2 tubes of toothpaste and 2 plates because I have 2 of them. 2 of the youth to have like a competition. And so each grab this tube of toothpaste, and your goal is to get all of it out onto the plate faster than the other person. So they'll they'll squeeze it and do whatever, and there's a pile of toothpaste on the plate. And congratulations, you won, whatever. And then I tell them, now the next step, put it back in.
I knew you were going to say
Yeah, I mean, it's an obvious thing, but
Yeah.
Do they even try?
I've seen people try. It doesn't work. Yeah, I mean, we don't treat ourselves as well as we treat our friends sometimes, do we? How can we be better friends to ourselves?
We have to like ourselves.
Keep healthy so that you can be here. Maybe remember that you can't take it with you.
Okay.
Be careful what you leave behind.
try to let go of things that are cluttering
Your
peace.
life.
Your life, your peace, clutter, and and it's not just material things. I don't mean that necessarily. It's
That's what I meant,
grudges
yeah.
and
Yeah.
whatever.
That's what I meant about
It's
leaving
tough.
things
Hang
behind.
on,
Not material.
get rid of them. We were talking about the elections and all of that. I have to, and I keep reminding myself, let it go. Just go to the future, and go try to make change and shape the world the way it will be good for everyone. So in order to do that, I have to let go of any feelings that are negative, because that's going to keep me from moving forward.
Letting go. It's
Yeah.
going to keep you from
Yeah.
letting go. You got to pray on it.
I do.
Continue to pray.
Yeah.
That's all
Fasten your
you can do.
seatbelts and say your prayers.
I do.
Acceptance is a
Yeah.
big thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like being alone, you accept it. And then you may not be happy, but you're content. You have to make
Right.
the best of what you have.
And let go of the
Yeah.
pity party thing.
You have to remember Isaiah, your way is not his way.
Yeah, it's easier to accept mistakes that other people make than to accept mistakes that we make.
Mm.
It's easier to accept that other people aren't perfect.
Nobody's perfect.
I heard someone say once that if we talk to someone else the way we talk to ourselves, they get a restraining order on us. There's some truth to that sometimes.
Rein yourself in. Load your brain before you speak.
But even even when you're speaking to yourself, same thing. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
People always say to me, "Why do you say that? Why are you so hard on yourself?" They always, or they give me a compliment, and I'm like, "Yeah, well, this is and that," and I'm like, "Stop it! It's great."
That's a hard thing to accept. Like we were talking about giving and receiving.
Yeah. Absolutely.
A hard thing is to get, thanked, or they want you to come and get a reward, or to come and get an ovation for something you do, or something like that. You say, I don't need that. I just do what I want to do. I don't need that. But then you don't let the other people have the opportunity to tell you how much they appreciate it. And I'm the same way. I have a hard time with that. Very hard time.
It said in here about when you do things for other people, it makes you feel good. Was it endorphins or something?
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to do something good for you, and you're like, no, you're keeping them from feeling good.
And what about doing good for yourself?
It's hard to do because you're always busy doing something for somebody else, or something for even the cats, But but it's hard. It's hard to you have to carve out something for yourself that you really would make you feel good, gives you joy. You feel guilty about doing that.
And my doctor told me that I should soak my feet in Epsom salt because I have trouble with my heel. So my daughter says, "Well, why can't you do it?" I'm like, "Well, for one reason, I'm here at your house. I'm hardly home when I get home. I'm like, I'm too tired to drag the stuff out, and and I got to do this and that."
What would it look like, Mary? You early on today, you shared that one thing you appreciate about friends is how they, when you're in need, they come and spend time with you. What would it look like if, when we're in need, we come and spend time with ourselves too?
You need to take a break. You need
What
to
would
say
that look
no
like?
to yourself. You need to say no.
Yeah.
There's 3 things today, but they're okay things. One that actually this afternoon, I'm going to go and give blood, I hope, if my iron
yeah,
isn't too low.
yeah.
I'm going to do that. Make me feel good, but,
Uh-huh.
you know, and of course they always, you know, thank you and everything. Well, that, you accept it, you know. I was 1 point low in iron the last time I went. So I ate my raisins, I ate my beets. But in return, I also get it's a thank you letter, but it tells me what my cholesterol is.
Yeah.
So
why not?
it's a two-way
free
thing.
blood work, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So what are some things you like about yourself?
That I do that. I like that.
Okay.
That I want to help other people, I care for other people.
I like that we do all those cards, but I'm glad it's done. Still buying.
It's a tough one to answer because if you say everything positive, you come off as being conceited.
Well, but your pastor is asking you to answer this question, so it's not you're not coming out and saying, well, here's something great about me. So I'm asking you, what's something great about you?
Well, I think I'm a good friend
Okay.
and I'm a giver.
Yeah, great, great.
I get along with my neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't always true.
No.
Good fences make good neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
We're not allowed to have fences in Evergreen, but it's fine, you know.
It's a good idea.
I think that's important. I was trying to think for myself what I would say, but when you said get along with others, that's a really important thing to me, and I think it's hard to do, but I do it. I'm able to be aware of people thinking differently than I do, so I think I'm able to do that. When I was thinking, I could say a list of things I do for other people, I'm a giver, all that, but it didn't seem like it was enough. I mean, giving all the time is not enough to me. I don't know, I can do it, but so what? But being able to deal with difficult people sometimes, and with
Well, that's
Good
showing
people.
empathy, you know.
yeah, that to me, I think that's what I really like about something that I do. I'm able to do.
Well, and then we say no to some things, then there's other people that will say, well, why doesn't she do that? You have to just they have to accept that.
They have to, and I think I told you what my mantra is. I'm not able to do this. And people will don't know what do you mean by not able? Well, I'm just not able to. And then I just say a broken record and I say it over again. So that people will not be asking me why not, or when can you?
Right, well, the other day when you asked me, I'll help you do your white slips if you want, I can help you. And I said, no, that's all right, I can handle it myself. Even though I got this whole big white slips.
Yeah,
But the reason I say that is because you can do things that I can't. I cannot lift and tote, stand,
true.
but I can sit
It's something you
and do those
can
white
do.
slips.
Yeah.
That's not that
Speaking
I
of the white
don't.
slips,
Yes.
does it bother you that I put the amount on the top?
No,
It used to bother Marilyn.
no, it doesn't bother me. No, nothing like that. But
Except
I
different
just
ways.
wanted to, you have to do what you can do,
Yes.
and that's
We all
one
have
thing.
our strengths.
Yeah.
That's
and our
one thing I can
weaknesses,
do.
and that's why we support each other.
Yeah.
I can't do other things.
But you can do everything. If you could do a lot of things, it doesn't mean you're going to do a lot
No,
of
I
things
don't
either.
have to. No,
I mean, I'm saying speaking for
but
myself.
I'll choose what I'm going to do and choose what I can.
Yeah, choose
Can
and
do. But one thing I enjoy is coming to the church service on a Sunday. That's one thing I enjoy.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, I gotta get up and go to church. Yeah.
No,
No.
it's not a
Yeah,
chore.
no, I look forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
And I have a problem understanding why more people don't want to come to a church service. I don't know why.
I thought there's lots of
Well,
reasons.
I
I think
mean, I
one of
have
the reasons is a
family.
habit, ritual that you get into, and another reason is they haven't tasted a really good service and
That's true.
sermon and church
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, that's part of it. I mean, this is a very good church to come to, I believe. And of course, I'm prejudiced, but you know.
I think we get disappointed when, like on Sunday, we were just all kind of looking around and hoping we had enough for the meeting.
Did you talk Maureen into staying? Maureen Suprick?
Yes.
Good,
Yeah.
because she was going to leave.
Yeah.
Where does she live now?
She's at the
Episcopal.
Episcopal.
Oh,
She
good.
loves it.
Just she
Oh,
got in
great.
there.
Mm-hmm.
That's good for her.
Mm-hmm. Yesterday, speaking of friendships, I ran into a lady out at the dollar store. She's 91. Her and her husband were good friends of my parents. And I hadn't seen her in years. And I thought I saw her daughter in the one aisle, and I wasn't sure. But then when I went to the other aisle, I was, "Oh, Katie, so glad to see you. I haven't seen you in so long." And then we chatted, and then of course her daughter came over, and that was just made my day because we saw each other. Yeah, she was probably happy to see me. She's 91 and still driving.
God bless her.
She's But they were good friends of my parents for a long time.
So let's move on to another point in this chapter, which is how Jesus defines friendship. You know, Jesus. I'm looking at the bottom of page 145 here. You know, Jesus said to the disciples in the upper room, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay one's life down for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you." And what does he command them to do? He commands them to lay down their lives for one another. And then the end of that paragraph on 146 says this: "And this is the mystery of the cross. Jesus offered his whole self so that human beings might find friendship with God." Have you ever thought about the cross as an act of friendship?
No, it's always been more of a father figure than a friendship. But you should be friends with your father.
It's a reminder, I think, of what Jesus told us. Love one another.
Well, he endured suffering on the cross, and also was angry at God for having forsaken him, as you told me that you said yourself. I know. And all of those things sometimes enter into a friendship. But if you really you feel that person's pain, you suffer with them, and you also forgive. That person may have hurt you, and you forgive them. And I guess it comes to all of those things are compassion, for the other person, even though they hurt you, or they're hurting, but I think it's just a lot of things. I hadn't thought about it before, but there's a lot of symbolism there.
Sometimes we'll say, God, why did you let this happen?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, looking at him as a friend at that point, you probably don't think,
Mm-hmm. Well, I've sometimes looked at my friends and said, "Why did you do that?" So it's a little different. Remember some years ago, license plates in Pennsylvania all said, "You've got a friend in Pennsylvania," and a lot of people bought these license plates on the front of the car that said, "You've got a friend in Jesus."
Yeah.
So we do talk about that. There's an old hymn, what a friend we have in Jesus. What does that mean to you? What does it mean to be friends with Jesus?
you can count on him to be there no matter what.
Right, he's
Thick,
dependable.
thin, the loyalty.
You don't have to impress him. He accepts you
That's
for who you
right.
are. He loves you for who you are.
And that God is approachable. I feel like when you think of God as just being God, you don't feel like you're worthy sometimes to have a relationship with God. But if you think of God or Jesus as being a friend, then I feel like God is more approachable, and you can have, like, usually friendships are, well, good friendships are two-way. It's not just only one person's getting something out of it. So when you think of God as being a friend, then you feel like it's a back and forth relationship.
I find that really interesting to think about. That if my relationship with Jesus is a friend, it's not one way. It's. I mean, we're not equals, but
Right.
but there's a two-way relationship there, and if I celebrate that Jesus is loyal to me, then my role there is to be loyal to Him, and it feels empowering almost, that it's not just thank you, it's also thank you, I want to come with you and do this.
And how many times have little things happen and then you say, oh, thank God. And then, you're working together that praise Him, He helped you.
I'll help you find a parking spot next time, God.
Yeah.
So how do we nurture our friendship with God?
I think spending time with Him, praying, reading the Bible, what we're doing now, coming to church, doing good for other people.
Yeah, you can't be a friend to someone who you don't know.
And you're not really a friend with someone if you don't spend any time together, are you?
That's right.
Right.
Even if even if you have a friend who you correspond with and you don't actually see, you're still spending that time,
Yes.
doing that. And maybe that's closer to what our relationship with God is like, since we don't really, we don't really see God too often. But
It's making space, and that space inside rather than outside. Because I can make space when I'm taking a walk. I can make space when I'm painting, when I'm doing something that's more mindful, like. But it's making space, because if it's closed up, we were talking about this the other day, and I know it all sort of blends together when we have these discussions. I guess it was the dwelling in the Word talked about being closed and not opening up as much as we can do. Closed up means, that we're closed up with clutter and things that we have to do, and that we don't make the space inside.
I just had a thought that, Sherry said, well, spending time reading the Bible, and I feel like sometimes when you read the Bible, you feel like you should learn something, or you're trying to figure out what God wants you to do. But I was sitting here thinking, when we spend time with friends, what do? We talk with them, and they're usually telling you're telling each other stories, either about what happened this week, or what happened when you were a kid, or what happened when you went on vacation. And I was sitting there thinking, when we're talking with people, you're telling stories. The stories might be short or long, but you're telling each other stories. And so it got me to thinking that every time we read the Bible, we're reading stories about God. It's like God telling us faith stories. And so, it kind of goes with that friendship. It's like, so you're spending time with God as a friendship, and God's telling you stories. But
I love that insight, because I don't, if I spend time with a friend, I don't at the end of it think, well, what did I learn today? You know?
Right.
And if I didn't learn something, boy, that was a waste of
Right.
time. But yeah, if I come out of a prayer or a time of meditation and like, I don't feel like I learned anything, I wasted it. No, that's if it's a friendship, it is that time together.
And I never really thought of it that way. Well, I mean, I thought of it as faith stories,
Yeah.
but I didn't think of it as like a friendship, kind of like a friend telling you stories. And I have to say that the parts of the Bible I like the most are the stories,
Yeah.
the story ones, not I don't know, not the litany of who begat who or who cut off whose hand or whatever. I like the stories.
Even things like Paul's letters
Cupid's
that go
son or
into theology and
Right.
stuff, I think it's important and helpful, but it's not the core of it. The core of it is the stories, yeah.
I watched the Country Music Awards last night, and I never thought this would fit into a conversation today. But Brooks and Dunn were singing a song, and it's called "I Believe." And in the lines, 'cause I was watching it, like not doing a puzzle while I was watching, and part of that song says, "What's written in red." And it's what's written. It was meant to be what's written in red in the Bible, and then the chorus is "I believe," and then everybody fits in with that. But I didn't think about that till just now, that would be a connection.
Well, when did
That's
they stop?
written in red?
When did they
was
stop
what Jesus
printing
said.
things in red? I mean,
Well, you can still find Bibles that have that. You can still find them, yeah.
But country music, then that's he was singing it like he really believed what was written in red. Ugh, I got a chill just saying that because I didn't think about that before. I guess that's a good thing.
I think the difference between we need to learn and know the facts, of the
Right.
Bible and things, but then there's the insights we get from reading all of it, out of the concept, the meaning of it, rather than the facts so much. And the meaning is what touches me, of the meaning of the stories, and the meaning when we're having a friendship and talk with our friends. So.
And I think there's a rhythm to it as well, because friend is not the only image we have for God.
Right.
It's also shepherd. It's also teacher. It's also creator. That doesn't our relationship with God isn't just friendship. It's also many other things. So there could be a time for spending time with God as a friend. There could be a time for spending time with God as a healer and as somebody who smacks you upside the head sometimes. There's time for that. And it's
It's just like having different friends for different.
sections of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe
It's always
yeah.
fluctuating.
Yeah.
As a widow, I don't have the same friends as I had
Yeah, right.
as a couple.
Right.
Or that one person is different, so like you're a wife, you're a mother, you're a father, you're a brother, you're a nephew, you're a niece, you're so many different things to other people that it's like God, and I feel like when I come to church, then it's, well, God as the Almighty, it's like it's a chance to praise God then that you don't always do when you're just praying. I think when you're praying, you're more talking to God. But
We all have something in common. And that's it.
And there's a place for both. There's a place for being absolutely in awe of God, and that God is fills the temple with his mighty robe and all that. But there's also a place for seeing God as Jesus with his arms open. They're both accurate images of God.
As the great physician.
And that's very appropriate where you are in your life right now. Yeah, you may not need that at another point in your life, but right now, yes.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's spending time with God that we get to know God in all those different ways. April invents a word. It's loneliness without the L, so I think it's pronounced oneliness.
I did see that in the background of the last paragraph. Yeah.
And You know, the way she describes that is page 137.
Yeah, that's what I read. The one.
Down at the bottom of 136, it goes into word of
136?
loneliness.
Oh, there's loneliness.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
like
so she
that.
didn't invent it. It's an old word, she says here. Okay.
Yeah.
But on 137 is where she talks a little bit about it here. If we go about 6 lines down, when the disciples or the crowds found Jesus, he sometimes reacted with frustration. If I was lonely and someone found me, I would be happy for their company rather than irritated. It wasn't until I was older that I realized that the word lonely in this verse wasn't a reference to loneliness, it was a reference to solitude. Jesus was seeking out aloneness or oneliness. By withdrawing from the busyness, the expectations of others, and the noise of daily life, Jesus was making space for the prayer and for the relationship with God. So, and that's something we see Jesus do all the time in the Gospels. Is he, he'll go in and do some healing or teaching or whatever, and then he will pull back and go and pray, or it sounds like for an extended period of time. How have you experienced loneliness? You know, that moments when you've deliberately been, alone in terms of other people, but have found that to be a time for, an enriching time with God. It's probably not something we get in worship because we're surrounded by other people there.
There was one years ago when I was alone for the first time. It was like a death when I was divorced, and I was sitting in front of the sink, standing in front of the sink, and looking out the window, and I felt like I was in despair. I felt the bottom fell out of me. That was like my hole in my heart. I felt so empty, and I prayed, "Be with me, Lord, help me." I didn't say much else.
Mm-hmm.
And he lifted me up, literally. I felt that I was being lifted up like I was not heavy. I was very light. And I felt joyful or like my burden had been lifted. I'll never forget it. And I think, and I was all alone, nobody was around. And so that experience of my being totally alone, I don't think I had a cat even at that time, maybe not. But I just was, it was a very strange feeling. Felt good.
I was in the kitchen with a really bad storm, the other house, a really bad storm going around. And I had Ashley and Donnie, I was babysitting them. Donnie was actually in a little carrier seat thing. And it was like green outside our bay window, and the trees were blowing. And there I was alone with the kids, and I, thinking a bird bath's going to fly through the front window or something. Something had to happen, but we were safe, and then it was just such a relief. But of course, I think I was praying that God took care of us that day, because it could have been so much worse.
Mm-hmm.
It was all calm. It was like being in a hurricane, although that was bad enough.
Okay, any other thoughts or reflections before we wrap up?
I think I'd probably experience more loneliness when I'm out in nature, like if you're taking a walk or you see a sunset and you're by yourself and you just think about how beautiful the earth is and how God created such a wonderful place, and or if you're curled up on the couch with a blanket in the wintertime and you're just all like cozy, like that warm feeling. I think either I feel like those are times when you feel I feel more like oneness with like experiencing God's presence or being content with where I am at the moment. I also feel like since I retired, I feel like I'm able to do more things for myself, or things I want to do. When I was working full time and had kids out, like now our kids aren't home and we don't have grandkids yet, that I gotta try to, make sure I have time to like spend time with them. So, and I see the difference between myself and my husband, who's still working and drives like really far to work every day, and how I have like way more time to just kind of be content with what I'm doing or what I'm doing, like. So I think out of like all the times of my life, this time right now is the time that I personally have been able to spend the most time with myself, or doing things to try to like, but I also enjoy doing things for others, so and I think that's good too. So
I'm reading a book right now, and the woman's brother has a friend. Her brother's a pastor. Her friend is a bartender. They're still good friends over years from high school and everything. And they were joking, each one thinks the other one's job is easier.
Oh.
So that'd be a good book for you to read. And so the pastor, when they decided they're going to switch for a week, and it's close to Christmas. So then the bartender thinks, oh, I'm going to sit down Monday night and really watch the football game. And the friend is talking. His sister is the church secretary. So he already knows what the list is, and then she says, well, can we fit this in here and this? Oh yeah, she's putting all this stuff on the list. Now that's as far as I've gotten. But you look at it from somebody else's point of view, and I think at the end, I think they're going to be better friends than they were to start with. But it's just, the Lord's just giving them that chance to see where have another point of view in my other person's shoes. So, but I like, because it's kind of it's the comedy of it right now. But I think it'll get quite serious as within a couple days. Anyway.
And
I can report next week. No, next week is Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Well, when you get back, you triggered a thought about what others' points of view are. Sometimes when you want to be by yourself and you want to cuddle in your, whatever, or somebody wants to be by themselves, the other person doesn't want that person to be by themselves because they think you should be doing something, or you're lazy, or you should be. If that other person is more of a doer, So I think it's good to be around. If you don't have anybody around, it's great. If you have somebody around, a companion who really respects your privacy, is wonderful. And that's
Well, like my neighbor, I've said this many times. She said to me, "You're never home." Well, I like to be home some days. Since she said that, I really slowed down. I'm not as active, but it just always made me laugh. You're never home, but I'm
the
doing
neighbor
things.
is.
Well,
She's always home.
my things.
So she's
Well, she has family problems, but I don't get into those. But the things, a lot of the things I'm not home for are here, which is for me. I
Doing God's
want
work.
to be here. Well, I guess it's God's work if He brings me here to share.
That's another thing. People think maybe you should be, I don't know if I maybe heard you say that instead of doing things, maybe it's better to do things that you feel more comfortable with doing things for the church rather than sitting and sharing and not doing things. You know what I mean? Being here. That's a tension that sometimes people feel. Oh, I should be out there doing something, folding clothes or doing something like that instead of being here. It's
It's
a
like the
tension.
dust; it'll wait.
Yeah. I think you, in order to do things with the Spirit of God, you need to refresh yourself and be nurtured by this.
All right. Well, shall we close with prayer then? Okay, I invite you to repeat this prayer after me. Thank you, Lord God,
Thank
you, Lord God,
for friendship and help.
for
friendship and help.
And thank you for solitude,
Thank you for solitude,
time by myself,
time by myself,
the rhythm of many,
the rhythm of many,
and the rhythm of one.
and the rhythm of one.
You give through our friend,
You give
Give
to
to our friend,
Lord Jesus, your Son.
Lord Jesus, your Son.
Amen.
Amen.